Hi, everyone. This is Kerem Baran with Solar Academy. I am here today with the Next Wave Energy Monitoring team, Nader Yarpezeshkan, the founder CEO, and Ethan Ehlers, Director of Business Development. We are going to talk about the solar data revolution and Next Wave's quest for smarter solar monitoring. But before we go into that, Nader, you're the founder here. I wanted to dig in a little bit into your story. You are a Southern California guy who's been in renewables for a long time. So maybe tell us a little bit about how you got into renewables, your background, what you've done, and how that led to NextWave as a company.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Karen. And yeah, thanks for
Yeah.
having us. Yeah. So, it's not really so much about me. I've been lucky starting from the get-go of entering the solar space back in 2008 with development, with Synergy, where we did, basically mainly an EPC and development firm.
Utility scale.
Yeah, a lot of C&I at first, but now, yeah, mainly because Synergy's still continuing.
Yeah.
A lot of, like community solar and front of the
Hmm.
meter projects. But luckily, I've always been heading businesses with a solid team, with a foundation of engineering. So I think at the get go with Synergy, that was kind of the theme there, which is translated as time's gone on with other companies as well. Did that for maybe 14, 15 years. That was my first, obviously, dip into the industry, but also exposure to monitoring. And then from there, it was with PRS, Phoenix Renewable Services, focusing on infrastructure services, so O&M and, asset management across, I think now we're 9 states where we've got assets that we're managing and delivering, preventative and reactive type maintenance. But obviously there, a whole new world of exposure, right, with monitoring, because that's like the hub. Everything revolves around the performance of the asset. But with PRS, again, it's that engineering, I would say, backbone is the common theme through whether it was Synergy, PRS that's been now going on a year 10, still growing very rapidly, and then now Next Wave. Again, with the engineering backbone. And most of that's due to my father, Hassan Yarpezeshkan. He's a electrical engineer by trade, with a very long history of power quality, but manufacturing in the power quality space. So like, power quality systems such as generators, backup systems, transfer switches, you name it, any big type of uh, power components that he's manufactured.
Just curious here, was your
Yeah.
father involved with Synergy and Phoenix as
Yeah.
well?
Yeah. So Synergy, there was three of us who founded it,
Yeah,
and he was the other piece there
right.
along with Bill Pham.
Yeah.
And then PRS, yeah. So while I was at Synergy, after some time, he, as usual, got the jitters to launch something else.
Hmm.
And development's great, but obviously service has got kind of like
Yeah.
more margin there. And we saw a major disconnect in the market. Maybe not a disconnect, but like a shortfall. O&M
Hmm.
being like,
Yeah.
the last,
Ignored. Yeah,
right?
ignored.
It's like not even on the pro forma sometimes when you're looking at the
Right. Right.
right, the transaction.
Mhm.
Uh, so we saw that, okay, there's definitely a gap there, something that we could fill in. So I was moonlighting at the time. So this is like, 10 years ago when we started PRS. And then as time gone on and PRS got larger and more effort was needed, I slowly basically transitioned out of Synergy. Synergy's still doing great,
Yeah.
led by Bill Pham there, and they're doing some big things on the community solar front across the U.S. actually. But yeah, so with PRS, we saw this underserved vertical, and we
Yeah.
did that with again my father, who's got the electrical engineering background. I'm more obviously been always on the business, the
Hmm.
economic side, with a pretty, I feel, a good uh, handle on operations and mainly efficiency with teams, but also just execution. So kind of led that with PRS, and then again, and then maybe it's us like gravitating towards like the stepchildren of solar. So it was O&M,
Mhm.
and then now it's monitoring. Again, the
Yeah,
the
yeah.
the other, it's not even on the list, right? When you're looking,
It's like the ignored part of O&M.
it really, yeah,
O&M was the ignored part of
yeah,
EPC and development, and now
exactly.
monitoring is the ignored part of O&M. Yeah, got it.
Yeah. So with NextWave, yeah, I mainly lead strategy, operations, but also the look and feel of the software itself.
Yeah,
But again, I think from the get-go at Synergy, very early on, we saw that okay, monitoring is, again, when it comes to efficiency, I saw it is a little bit of an area that could be improved. Whether that was like lead time on getting the part, you're trying to hit these milestones in development and EPC, whether it's the lead time of the actual product, and then once it's there, you got all these third parties that are ready to try to, they want to close this transaction, and then it's like, okay, we got to make sure the system's communicating. Is it configured properly? Are we getting able to get the reports that we need to? So, me watching that AR, we saw that, okay, this is kind of what's going on here. Like, why is it taking this long? Why is this so difficult? So that was the first exposure to it. And then with PRS, yeah, I mean, like I said at the beginning, performance and that data is chief when it comes to properly maintaining these sites. So we saw a lot of areas there, and I think we're lucky to understand these issues because with PRS, engineering is a big part of what we do. Of course, like I keep saying, the central theme, but we also have a full team of field network engineers that are in the field, so they understand the hardware very well and troubleshooting and potential issues between, let's say, the hardware and platform, or the hardware and the host infrastructure system there. So it gave us a leg up in understanding those issues, and then also our performance monitoring team here as well at PRS allowed us to dig deeper in understanding, what areas, what functionality would improve their job. How can they report this data more clearly, a little better? How can our key accounts people at PRS um, deliver communication to their customers, right, in a more effective manner? So we kind of had this laundry list of things, and then finally, like we do most things, we're very vertical, like Synergy is, and like PRS, and now NextWave. We knew we wanted to build this from scratch, the platform. The hardware was simple, but obviously developing that software is probably the first barrier that took some time and some thinking of how we were going to approach it. Us not knowing, we're not software guys, but we're industry. We're like, okay, we know what it's supposed to do. I have an idea of what we want it to look like. So that just took a little bit of searching, but we got lucky with that aspect. Just after some different conversations, we finally hooked up with a former staff engineer who led some major software development at big, very large companies like Qualcomm, Nokia, and you name it, other industry leaders that understood, well, after some time, saw what we were trying to achieve and the vision, and was fully on board. So then we got a lot of comfort there. Okay, this is an executable plan.
So you got your technical co-founder essentially. When was that?
So NextWave is now 6 years old. So that was,
Wow.
yeah, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. Yeah.
And so you've been essentially developing NextWave internally for your own needs for the first several years then?
Yeah, you're
Is
right.
that
Yeah, I can't remember.
is that a fair statement?
Yeah, yeah, and that's kind of, I'm glad you brought that up. So initially with NextWave, we created so that
Eh,
PRS can
You
use.
created an internal pilot,
Yeah,
let's call it.
ex-
Yeah,
ex-
something like
pretty much. It's like, okay,
yeah, yeah.
because that, again, that kind of, that with O&M, efficiency is everything. Whether it's route management, your dispatching, it's how you're communicating things internally, but especially that the monitoring side of it. So we were like, okay, how do we take this, absorb this part of the equation so that we can manage it? And that's why we launched NextWave internally so that our performance engineers and technicians can use. And we did that for a few years, and it was great. I mean, for sites that that were sensitive and we needed to get information a lot more rapidly, but also being able to make changes and not have to wait for a third party. We kind of you kind of manage it on your own. we did that, and then we're always asked like, okay, what is there another party involved? Like, or not another party, but are there other options for monitoring? Can you give us a quote on something else, or can you point us to a different direction? Yeah, I think it was just we never planned on doing this. I think it was a Friday. We were all just in a good mood, and we're having a call with a key account, and it just kind of blurted it out. Oh, you heard of Next Wave? And they're, of course they were like, who the hell is that? So that opened the Pandora's box, and we put it on a few sites for them, and they got very comfortable with it. They really liked what they saw, and that just basically attached to their entire fleet. And then from there, we're like, okay, we're all busy as it is, but why not make things even more interesting? And we launched it out to market maybe about a year later.
So the problem that NextWave is solving vis-a-vis all the other alternatives out there, like how would you describe that being different than the traditional monitoring options that are out there? Um, the fact that you've developed it internally, like what extra
Yeah.
perspectives or benefits?
For sure. Yeah, that's actually a good
Right.
segue into Ethan. So once
Yeah,
we, about like I said, a couple years ago, when we actually came to market with it, it was mainly, all organic. We
yeah,
no sales team, no marketing. So enter Ethan just this year, who's got a lot of experience with monitoring, far more than I do, and kind of putting together that value proposition and understanding the main differentiators between what's out there. So he's entered the team as leading basically our sales efforts. So Ethan can maybe talk to some of these
yeah,
points as he, I think, because of his background, can
yeah.
be a good, yeah, point of reference.
Ethan, you've
Yeah,
been
Ethan,
on
don't be
Solar
shy.
Academy before, but let's talk a little bit about your background and how you ended up at NextWave as well, and then dive into your monitoring background and what you saw here.
Yeah, so I've got just about 10 years of renewable energy experience under my belt, all of which has been focused on software solutions primarily, ranging between monitoring solutions and asset management solutions. And something that Nader said that really resonated with me is, he and the rest of the PRS and the rest of the Centric team have lived through the frustrations that some of the other monitoring providers, that some of our customers experience with the other monitoring providers. Lack of responsiveness, long turnaround times for quotes, for assistance, long lead times, etc. So when Nader created and his team created NextWave, they were creating it knowing what it was like being a customer of the other monitoring platforms out there and looking to solve specifically those problems and those challenges that they had experienced. So, not only are we industry owned and industry created, but we're created by people who have been in your shoes before as a
Right.
customer of a monitoring platform. I spent a number of years building up one of the other monitoring companies that's out there. I've heard from a ton of different customers over the years. One of the things that I find remarkable about NextWave, I think in particular, is you know I don't get calls from my customers asking me for help getting support, getting a technical assistance. People call me when they need something, when they need a new system, when they need additional services on their software. But when they need technical support, when they need customer support, when they need operational assistance, they call their customer success rep, they call their the technical support folks. The phone gets picked up and they get the help they needed. At other
But
companies I've worked at, I can't tell you how many times I, as a sales rep, get a call saying, I need help. I can't reach the people who are supposed to help me. I need this problem solved yesterday. That doesn't happen here.
almost like a cultural difference in customer service, it sounds like, but also obviously the way that customer service is designed, both in the product and in the services. I assume that is one way to describe it. Maybe
Yeah.
can you give like some concrete examples of that?
Of NextWave?
Of like that customer experience, of like that customer service issue being resolved at the first or second call with the customer service rep, as opposed to
Well,
escalating to the management team, or
oh,
like,
you're asking me for concrete examples, Kareem, of
oh,
situations
things
that
you don't see.
that's what I'm not involved in because they don't call me. They
Right.
call the customer support line. The phone gets picked up. They get the help they need.
Yeah.
And I think you really hit on something. It's both a structural thing. We've set the company up with the correct amount of support resources for our customers to use. But it's also, you know, a design aspect too, where the platform is more intuitive, it's easy to use. The information that you need is typically right at your fingertips, one or two clicks away. It was built from the ground up by people who had experience using some of the other platforms that were out there, using platforms that were built up over time in a haphazard way with features and functionality that was buried under multiple different layers of menus, that was tucked away in a distant corner, that was thrown together haphazardly. That's not the next wave way. Next wave has been planned out, thought out methodically and strategically, so that when you as an O&M professional, as an asset management professional, log into the next wave platform, you'll understand almost immediately how things work, where to find the information you need, and how to get your job done within next wave, so that you can generate your report, analyze the performance, whatever it is you need to do within the platform, and then move on to everything else that your job entails. So it's both a matter of having the appropriate number of resources available to help our customers at any given time, as well as designing the platform and designing the hardware so that the need for support is minimized.
Nader, any like in the early days or along the development of NextWave as a platform, like what were some of these specific challenges that you've experienced and solved, and how did you design the solutions? Like what were some of the impediments to growth or challenges along the way that form NextWave to be that differentiated the platform today?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, like I said, when it came to the hardware, that was very simple. Just given the engineering background, that was very easy for us to, and very early on, we had those schematics kind of drafted out. We already had an idea of which parts we want to use. So there was no, and also the reliability. Another thing is because of PRS kind of having that engineering and power quality side of it,
Mhm.
we're always called when there are these major failures. And so we got exposure to a lot of like DAS, or, your data acquisition system
Yeah.
issues as well in the field, from like whether weather events, whether it's lightning or what have you. But also,
What were some of those major issues, like inverter blowouts or
yeah,
co-ops,
well, we've had
like
issues where there was in one case,
fire?
it actually wasn't even a weather event. It was a grid issue that came back and basically came through the DAS and then not only fried it, but also the SELs and recloser that were on the line as well. So it kind of had a pretty devastating impact on the rest of that loop.
Mm.
So again, seeing the things like this, whether it's weather or in this case, like a grid event, we saw the need of maybe more, protections and just more robust hardware. But again, that was very natural, just given the background. The
Yeah.
software, like Ethan already hit on, the user experience was also chief in that we wanted to be very fluid, not having to go through so many layers. I always like to use the Salesforce example because we use it. We don't love it, but it has a lot of functionality, so we use it. Not to make any comparables to any monitoring companies out there, but it has all the functions there. But it's like
Yeah.
to get to what you want to get, and my exposure usually is to run these reports. But it's like you go through various screens and then you're trying to find the hyperlink to get to what, and then by that time you're so deep underground.
Yeah.
I'm never going to remember, despite how much Grok or AI has helped me get to that level. I'm never going to find out. I mean, a week is going to go by and I'm not going to remember how I got to those steps. But
Yeah.
so that was huge. And again, we're lucky, right? We're kind of a late mover. I should say that a lot of these companies have paved the way. They've done a lot of work up front. They've done a lot of development over years. And here we come and it's like, we used it and this is how we make it better. But we got exposure and, and we're able to update that experience to make it a lot more fluid, more dynamic. But while allowing, you're a very technical person to get to those views and data points that they want, but also someone that's not technical, like a child that gets on an iPhone and they can quickly navigate and get to screens. We wanted that experience as well. So, and nothing against,
Yeah.
the transaction folks out there or the financiers, but, they can also get in the platform and run the reports they want and get the data they want to see very quickly. So,
So designing those UX layers to encompass more of the important data at
yeah.
that top layer
So
or
that took a lot of time, I think.
product.
So that was maybe an initial challenge, working with, again, our CTO and him seeing what we're trying to achieve. And then,
You guys who interact with the customers design some of those UXs.
yeah,
Yeah, I
definitely. Yeah.
was
Yeah. So we
probably
did. And then kind of explain that to the team and have them kind of understand it. I think that took
yeah,
obviously a lot of time, but that's something that I think initial hurdle.
yeah,
And then the other challenge too, and we try to keep this in the forefront, and I'm sure Ethan is going to keep us to it, is that customer service, like the customer centric, basically mindset. Because sure, we launched it and, it's moving very quickly, but we have so much more that we want to do because we just have, you know, a lot more functionality that we're trying to achieve here, even whether it's the next couple quarters or for the next years to come. We have a big backlog, a lot of things that'll be launching, but we also have to basically balance that with the customer service side. Because again, one of the things that we came out of the gates was customer service. Is when they do have an issue, they can call a US team,
yeah.
uh, and they can walk through issues or virtually, however they want to handle it. But we can't lose that, and we want to keep that kind of on the forefront as we grow. And I think that's going to be something that, not to say we're going to struggle with, but we're going to always have to keep top of mind as we grow.
Yeah. So I'm assuming you have several dozen people on the Next Wave side of the business, and with that customer service team working hand in hand with the product development team, so that the product doesn't become that too many layered
Yeah.
Salesforce-like experience. That's going to be probably a key challenge as you grow. What are some other challenges on the growth side, and what do you see happening for Next Wave over the next few years? How do you see demand? How do you see new markets? How do you achieve uh, what major goals have you set? And maybe tell us a little bit about that growth aspect of the business and what you're wishing to achieve.
Because I think, as far as like growth is concerned, we're hoping, because timing is key for us, because we just kind of opened things up, so want to hit the ground pretty hard, and get as much attachment as possible. So again, but since we have a good book right now that's already on the platform, in addition to a handful of very large portfolios that you would know, we have a lot of one-off, behind the meter type sites. But healthcare, we got municipalities, federal, you name it, kind of all the major verticals, some utility scale as well. So that, I feel like we're very fortunate that as far as the customer front, that the TAM is not something it's very large and not one that's going to be difficult to chip into. But that balance, I would say, between customer service and new product launches is going to be something that we just have to manage. And I think we're going to do a good job. That's very key to me, as well as our CTO. He's very clear of that as well. So I think it's just something to keep on the forefront. And then it's not easy right now with supply chain, I think, because we have a lot of different products, but the made in US, the BABA compliance stuff are things that we do adhere to. It's a little bit more work for our logistics, basically our supply chain team, to kind of be watching the market, knowing where things are at, and making sure that whatever we're proposing to customers today is what we think is going to be readily available by the time the project is complete. And if not, we just have to be very quick and nimble in updating them on that. But I think the supply chain side is something that, that we're also keeping on the forefront, because in addition to customer service is lead time. We have everything here is off the shelf at our California facility, so we can get stuff out configured. I'm talking to the site within, 2 weeks or less even sometimes. But when
Yeah.
there are other compliance measures, that they're looking for, whether it's ITC related, or like I said, the made in US, the BABA compliance or what have you, then we just have to make sure that we have the latest and greatest from our suppliers.
I think another big challenge we're facing that we're working hard to overcome is just the lack of name and brand recognition. I mean, NextWave has been in business. We've been out there for 5-6 years now, and yet when people in the industry say solar monitoring or energy monitoring options, NextWave is not the name that immediately comes to mind. There's a few out there that are very established. We want our name to be right up there with them as far as what are your options for monitoring today. And then we also want to become known for being easy to work with, for being quick to respond, quick to help, easy to do business with, cost competitive, while still providing, an absolute bleeding edge market leading solution. And hitting on Nader's point about the hardware, all of our hardware is industry standard hardware, but more importantly, it's non-proprietary. So it's very easy to do business with us, but it's equally as easy to drop NextWave and go somewhere else because nothing about our hardware solution is proprietary. So that brings it back to customer service and reiterating that it is essential for us to make sure that our customers are 100% happy 100% of the time, because the moment they say, I don't like these people, I want to go somewhere else, it's like flipping a switch and they're gone.
I mean, that is actually kind of noble that you have designed your product to be open like that, to make it easy for customers to defect if they want to.
It's easy to come onto the platform. It's easy to give us a try. And you should know that if you do that and you decide you don't like this, it's easy for you to point that data straight back to your legacy provider or whatever other new provider you decide to go elsewhere and give a try. But we won't let that happen because we're here to make sure that you're 100% happy 100%. There is a lot of uncertainty in the market right now today. Nobody really knows for sure what's going to happen with the one big beautiful bill, what's going to happen with the incentives, what's going to happen with interest rates, what's going to happen with tariffs, what's going to happen with all sorts of different factors that affect our market that we're all playing in today. It's important to have a partner or partners that you can work with where it's easy to do business, where it's cost competitive, and where they provide you with a quality solution that's going to last for years and years to come. And that's where we really come in, is we are very cost competitive compared to our competitors out there, and we're dedicated to serving the customer. So you can do business with us knowing that that'll save you money while providing you with superior service and a market-leading product.
And with a team that has been doing this for, 17 years now, pretty much.
And with a team that knows what it's like to be in your shoes.
Makes sense.
Again, we're kind of lucky, and maybe that was by design. The PRS, whether it's O&M or in this case monitoring, it's a pretty de-risk play, I feel, in solar. If you were to choose other industries within the company, whether it's like a racking manufacturer, inverter manufacturer, modules, like those guys. I mean,
or an EPC play, or a resi installer, which like all the resi stocks as of today's June 18th. I think yesterday they all went down between 25 to 40% in the stock market.
It's crazy, And when I was doing, it's crazy. I don't know how they go to sleep. And when I was at, when we were at Centric, at one point, there was the, what was it? I think at the first feeling of like, oh my God, the CSI program, when you had those steps. Do you remember that?
Right. Yeah.
What was it? The performance-based incentive, the PBI?
Yeah.
And it had these steps, like it'd start off at, and I don't remember which direction. I feel like it was like step 10 was a couple dollars a kilowatt hour. I don't remember, but it was really rich. And then as time went on, depending on the IOU, you had a certain amount of budget.
Yeah.
I remember watching the ticker on that thing, and it was like, I had anxiety every time. Like, oh, am I going to get this customer in at this level? Is it that level? What type of conversation am I going to have with them? And then you turn into ITC, like, okay, what's policy going to do with this administration or the tariffs? And then these changes, and then community solar, and how certain states were going through voting, and at what level is it at? Development. I mean, I'm only 41, and you could see the gray hair. This is all development. Honest, I swear.
Yeah.
So luckily, with O&M, again, I think you've got a very large
much more stable business.
Right. Yeah, you do. And it's service based, and that
Yeah.
TAM is constantly compounding every quarter. And I think
Right.
that's the same with monitoring. So we're lucky
Yeah.
there. Not so much we have to do, but I think the industry as a whole, you're constantly, I feel, sure, you're focusing on top line, but really, I think a strong C-suite is really looking on how to increase risk adjusted value. And then how can you do that? And I think with every company that's different.
Are you guys hiring right now, despite all this uncertainty in
You
the
know
market?
what?
Well, I mean, I'm hiring account executives within my team, but I mean, I
Wow.
think you had some folks in for interviews, just last week, I think, Nader.
So you're definitely a growing business despite
We
all
are
this uncertainty. Yeah.
We're
definitely.
growing, we're privately owned, we're bootstrapped, and we're profitable. I think is also important
Yeah.
to consider as well as, if when you do business with NextWave, you're doing business with a partner that's here for the long run.
Yeah.
We're not
Orga-
C funded. Our continued existence isn't contingent upon hitting KPIs this year. We aren't burdened with tremendous amounts of debt. We aren't beholden to public shareholders demanding that we maximize their value over the course of the next 18 months. Our sole focus is making our customers happy and doing so and continuing to do so profitably.
Yeah, we are hiring. I feel like we've been constantly hiring. And I think hopefully, I think you were talking kind of the challenges earlier. The culture too, what we've kind of created here, both at PRS, I feel, and NextWave, it is one that's basically focused on over communication. And what that does is, it kind of fosters a sense of inclusion, trust, empowerment. And then that way, the employees, they feel valued, right? They're heard and they're confident in their roles. And then also because that information is very freely moving across departments, I think it basically forces the team to align with the customer first quality, the customer first driven type of mindset. So I think that's really helped propel, I think, the growth. We have ads, whether they're on Indeed or LinkedIn or et cetera, right? But we've been lucky in that we're getting a lot of looks through kind of word of mouth that are kind of hearing what we're doing. They're saying, "Oh shoot, these guys are serious." And with one of our major visions is bringing monitoring to the spotlight. It's been again kind of in the shadows. This one of the stepchildren of solar, in addition to O&M. We want to bring it to the forefront. We're bringing attention to it, that it is important, and there's different levels of quality that can be seen, and depending on what product you're looking at, but also customer service, like we talked about, but what the platform is meant to do. And a lot of those issues that we're hearing at these asset management conferences or the big industry level ones like RE Plus is about, you got aging infrastructure and there's these issues now. And, how can we improve O&M and how can we improve the top line? It's okay, yeah. And all these really are kind of circling around the data, right? Everyone talks about data and the importance of it. So it is the monitoring. That's the crucial aspect here. So we really want to bring that up to the forefront and hold those companies, including us, accountable for that, because that is, again, the main communication driver. So which goes hand in hand with kind of our vision. Yeah,
I got a curious question on that.
sure.
Are there reports or publishings that kind of average out the industry data and put it out in some sort of a statistical analysis for asset management and O&M, and is there a industry-wide effort does that? I think it would be a really cool project if you guys
No,
led
you're
something like that.
yeah, totally. No, they talk about it. So everyone that
Everyone
actually
talks about it. No one does
total
it.
no, Karen, no, really. No, they do bring it up. Oh, we should do this, right? Across, even our competitors and different industries within solar. We should share this data. And yeah, everybody,
Yeah,
that is the way to do it, right? Yeah, definitely. If
yeah.
PRS were to share.
You probably have plenty of data. If you could anonymize it and publish it somehow, it would be insightful
Yeah,
for
totally.
analysts, for purchasers, for general industry people to see
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
everybody we've all been in solar for plenty of time now. But in the early days, everybody used to say, "Oh, solar is hogwash. It's not real. It will never be anything." Now we're like
Yeah.
5% of all energy or all electricity, and we will soon be 50%. What most people don't realize
Yeah.
it because industry is growing 30% on average for the last 30 years, and everybody seems to forget that. And so sharing the specifics about like what those expected production forecasts are and by how much people are missing it or overproducing, because that's the next level of scare tactic that someone could
Yeah.
use for solar. It never produces what it promised.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
is it missing it by 20% or by 2%? Like that. There's of course, all of that stuff is relevant when you're managing an asset, and having that
Totally.
data public would be great.
Yeah, yeah, you're starting to slowly get into like our pending AI patent, but definitely, yeah, we're thinking that all that is very important. But it is, it's just a matter of how you're categorizing the data, how you're collecting it and compartmentalizing it rather, and then it's yeah, totally be very valuable. And I think everyone, I think, is going in that direction. Hopefully, so as we all do that, then hopefully, then at that point, then maybe, that could be that data could be shared and the industry can look at it because there are so many variables depending on environment, design, preventive maintenance measures on these assets over the years. Like, what have they been doing? Like, there's so many pieces to it, so it's really hard to give
Yeah,
right those meaningful data points without knowing all the history.
yeah.
You know,
I mean,
I chuckle a little bit, Karim, because I've heard this sentiment for years and years and years, and I've heard it from so many different companies. Wouldn't it be great if we could have this giant pool of data that we could all draw from and be able to do deeper analysis and get greater insight into blah, 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 blah. But the moment you talk to any individual company and say, would you be willing to participate? It's, oh, well, our data is proprietary and
yeah,
it's what gives us an advantage in the market, and we just really can't share that at this time. And we as a monitoring provider, we have to be careful too, because we don't actually own our customers' data. Our
sure.
customers own their data. We're simply stewards of their data, housing it on their behalf and providing them with easy access to analytical tools to do what they need to do to analyze that data. So
Yeah,
yes, it would be great if,
right,
but the way that these businesses are structured and the way that our business is structured doesn't allow that to easily happen.
right, right.
Hopefully someday we can get there, but right now there's significant barriers to making that happen.
Yeah, it's a good analogy to a situation I remember from having been in solar equipment distribution and related distribution markets. I know, like in the electrical market and in even in publishing, I think there's these like there are opt-in data dumps you can do to certain
Oh,
platforms, and you
yeah,
get the industry-wide statistical analysis back, having inputted something. And sometimes it's for free, sometimes it's for a fee, but you got to contribute the data to get the data back. And well, I
yeah,
think it's a matter of maturization. And
yeah, definitely. I think so too.
yeah,
Yeah, there's just so much, and I get it, right? There's so much going on across the entire industry. It's hard to come back to these things, but I think, like you said, as things mature and hopefully maybe settle a bit, because there is right now a huge focus on that data because now it's so powerful
yeah,
with what you can do with it, given the technology. So I think it's going to get there for sure. It's just a matter of, I think, time.
yeah. I mean, it's a very important asset class, obviously. Just like real estate is a very important asset
Yeah,
class, and there's a ton of real estate management companies. It's a whole industry. These are a real asset also, and managing and maintaining these
yeah,
assets is not effortless. And there's
hmm,
obviously a lot to be done, and you guys are at the forefront of that. So
yeah. We're excited. Yeah, no, it's definitely very exciting times. I think this is something we've been. Next Wave is something we've always thought about again since we plus 17 years ago, but it's great to see it come into the forefront now with monitoring in general, but now with Next Wave. So we're really excited about the opportunity, and I think in the coming years you'll see things shape up, and we're hoping just to deliver a very strong a platform with reliable hardware and just make sure we're getting all the data points out to customers and solving issues that people are seeing out in the field.
Great. Ethan, Nader, thank you so much for sharing this story and giving us an insight into really a 17-year-old team that has pretty much walked every path in the solar industry, that has um, seen the problems firsthand from customer perspective, and created solutions not only in the O&M services but also in energy monitoring platforms as a data platform, solving these major challenges as the industry grows and assets need to be maintained. Um, Thank you for this great conversation.
Thanks, Karen.
Yes, thank you, Karim. It's always a pleasure talking with you, and appreciate you giving us the time and your platform.
Yeah, and more soon. Thank you.